wanna stay ahead of the curve and follow my words. All we doing is train, innovate, solve, yeah. Teach, train, innovate, solve. If you wanna be ahead of the curve, then follow my words.
Good evening, everyone. I hope that you have had a wonderful break. And I know that many of you are returning to your campuses. We always want to come and be of support to you in any matter that we can. But tonight, our support is going to come in regards to helping you to understand effective co-teaching models. Now, this has SPED 186 infused all throughout our presentation to help those that are preparing for Special Education 186. But of course, I always say that the materials that we bring to you are to help you with practical support while you're in the classroom, regardless of what exam that you are preparing for. And so let's go ahead and just get straight into it. So co-teaching is not just about two adults sharing space. I've seen it done very well, and unfortunately, sometimes done poorly. I've had the pleasure of having some fantastic co-teachers during my career. Shout out to all of those that I served with at Harris Academy. Co-teaching is about intentional instructional design and definitely about communication. What we'll base the majority of our discussion on tonight is talking about the setting, the level of support students might need, types of need, whether it be academic, emotional, behavior, or social needs, as we go through the various points that I'll share with you tonight. So let's divvy up where we're headed. Our agenda for tonight is to talk about 6 co-teaching models, match those co-teaching models to some settings, and design some, talk about how the design in action actually works. Not to mention, infused throughout this, I put it as a separate point, but it's really infused throughout the presentation, is Special Education 186 exam preparation tips. These six co-teaching models that you see on my screen right now, I call them high utility models that you must know. And there are 6 in particular that I'm going to talk about as I researched, that come from Cook and Lynn Cook and Marilyn Friend's research from 1995 and 2010 research, I believe, were the years. And I'll be sure to put that information in our notes. But they emphasize flexible grouping and shared responsibility. And that's why I told you that tonight information is not just going to be about special ed, it's special ed infused, but it's going to talk about flexible grouping, period, and learning to co-teach together. Those 6 ones that I'm going to highlight throughout this evening's conversation are going to be lead support, team teaching, parallel teaching, alternative teaching, station teaching, and circuit teaching. All of these high utility models, as I call them, have a place and a point to make. So I want to jump right into how and when they fit. Because as I mentioned, those various models, they might not fit necessarily what you're trying to do or what you're trying to achieve while co-teaching together. And in no particular, well, it is a particular order as to what I have on your screen, but I want to say that I'm going to start out with alternative teaching because it covers a lot of the 6 that I talked about. And then I'm going to go into the various ones that you have on your screen because they really could be categorized with less with less models. I'll say that. So alternative teaching is a co-teaching model in which one teacher provides whole group instruction while the other delivers targeted small group instruction based on those identified student needs. It's always going to cover the data. It's going to be flexible. It's probably going to be temporary, but it's going to provide intensive instructional needs without removing access to general curriculum. So if a small group requires intensive remediation or maybe pre-teaching prior to a full-blown lesson, or even a deep dive into a unit of study, these are all great options. Then I mentioned two right below it. One teach, one assist, and one teach, one observe. I think both of them help students that need discrete academic or behavioral support without interrupting the whole group class flow. Oftentimes, this means that the inclusive teacher will come in while the general ed teacher is leading the class, or we can definitely flip-flop. This was one of the methods that I use quite often throughout my career. There's another one that I'll highlight toward the end that was utilized as well, but it works very well because sometimes we as general education teachers don't see certain things as our cohorts who are special ed teachers might see it differently. And us coming together to agree upon who's going to lead, how we're going to lead, is very helpful. Then there's station teaching. This allows for diverse learners to be placed in groups. And doesn't, to me, it doesn't, well, it could be more effective if you know who works well best together, but I won't get into that. But we want to cover different modalities, so multiple modalities, and oftentimes it's used when progress monitoring. I know that's when I would say I used it. And then parallel teaching, one that I think is very effective because it helps you to reduce your group size. And it supports students processing their engagement. And sometimes if you have students with language needs, this also is a great one to utilize and to use. And the very last one on my screen, which I use quite a bit, is team teaching. It's one of the ones I feel like others don't use as much because of the strong need to learn to co-plan together. And sometimes that seems like something that you can't do. But done properly, planning properly together, talking and communicating together, which is something I said before about communication, often removes that barrier. And then you have the piece de resistance, you being able to have your shared expertise shared with your students. That to me is the best part of team teaching. It helps our students to gain more independence. It helps us to be able to showcase what we know. Maybe my skill level in a certain area is not as great as theirs is. And so, as I said before, this is one that I think is excellent. But in true fashion of what I always say, no single model is best. However, when you're answering questions for the exam, the correct answer is always content dependent. Pay close attention to the content that they provide you with so that you are aware of what they're asking you for, and then you can definitely answer it properly. So here's my exam, one of my exam tips. When they mention co-teaching, always ask yourself, what does the student need more of right now? I also want to note that when they're asking you these questions, do the very best you can to not try to generalize it to your classroom at all. They are asking you questions regarding if it was in a utopian world, and that's the way you want to take this exam. They give you the information, you be guilty of laser focusing on that information in order to answer properly. And so we're going to shift over into some settings and information about settings. As we highlight the two settings that I have on your screen, I'm not going to talk too much about this slide. I'm going to stick generally to talking about how TEA describes each setting. They're describing inclusive settings. I'm going to show you a definition in just a moment of that and talk to you more about self-contained and some features of it. But learning to match models to the setting is contingent on your understanding of vocabulary. So I want to make sure that you have a clear definition underneath your belt and break down both inclusive settings and self-contained settings. So inclusive setting, it means that students with disabilities learn alongside peers without disabilities in a general ed classroom. They're receiving supports. These supports could be accommodations, like or paraprofessionals coming in to assist, and most definitely specialists coming in order for them to access the curriculum and participate in all school activities. It ensures meaningful involvement rather than just a physical presence. This definition, or this explanation that I'm giving to you right now, is deeply rooted in least restrictive environment. It's also a central principle of IDEA. So as we, kind of sum up inclusive settings, it's really a priority to access to grade level content. The instruction is differentiated, but not diluted. Emotional and social regulations often support through proximity and co-regulation. And that's what I would say I would highlight as inclusive settings. And then self-contained settings. It's an instructional arrangement in which students receive special education and related services in a setting other than general education classroom for 50% or more regular school day on a regular school campus. This means that students are with a special education instruction and instructor more than half of their school day, often with a small class size and individualized supports. The priority is skill acquisition and intensity. The instruction is explicit, scaffolded, and repeated. Some behavior and emotional supports are embedded into instruction and not just kind of added in, tossed in there, and added later. So with that said, I want us to put on our support need lenses. What are the students' need? Strong model matches to it, and why? So all support needs, that can be station or parallel. It's flexible grouping support, very readiness. So I won't dive too deep because I know that I'll run out of time, but definitely making certain that you have an opportunity to help start where they're ready and then grow them. I'll say that. High academic support, so alternative teaching, I would say, is the model. Allows intensive, targeted instruction, as I stated earlier. Behavior and emotional needs is the student need. One teach, one assist could definitely be the model that you choose. It preserves dignity and definitely regulation. And then the last one that I'll mention for right now is social skill development. This could be done with the team teaching model. You model collaboration and communication amongst yourself and your peer that is in the classroom with you, as well as on those students' peers. So what does this look like in action? This instruction is really not a place. So I want you to think of a place like we talked about, which setting is in, but more so along the thoughts of the content itself, the process, the product, and the environment. See, this is where intention meets impact. It's not a place, as I said before, it's a set of intentional decisions that is made. It's not a separate lesson, a separate setting, as I said before, but it's how you purposely adapt so that students can access learning. I talk about regulating emotions a couple of times. I mentioned it, but it's very important, as well as building independence. I want us to move from the theory to application and look at how co-teaching teams adjust content, process, and learning conditions based on their students' needs, and how these decisions can show up clearly on a SPED 186 exam and in real classrooms. This, as highlighted on my screen right now, is where support becomes strategic, where good teaching becomes compliant, responsive, and sustainable. I talk about sustainability in one of my very recent messages or videos. But what changes with specifically design instruction is what's taught. That's the content, process. How is it going to be taught? What product am I going to produce? How am I going to learn? How's the learning going to be demonstrated? And then finally, where and with whom is this learning going to happen? So when you're evaluating answer choices, look for evidence that instruction has been intentionally adapted using student data. If one of the choices relies on placement or compliance language or even convenience, it's most likely incorrect. Be careful to eliminate distractors as you justify your reasoning, because SPED 186 is more scenario-based and is designed to assess. When I look through the competencies, the level of blooms from the test 160, the previous SPED 160 test, to 186, those competencies, Bloom's level, are raised high. And this is to ensure that the exam produces, or shall I say, assesses your knowledge and understanding of you being a special ed specialist and not just an instructor. I believe that these key points will help you, but I also want to practice a prompt with you. And when I say practice, it's only to highlight a little bit, because again, our short time together. In this question, it says, a co-teaching team notices that several students with high behavioral needs disengage during whole group instruction. Got our 6 approaches. Which approach best supports their needs? Now, here's the must I think that you need to do as you think about this. First of all, you need to identify the primary need. And in this one is behavioral regulation. Then you want to select a model that reduces the demand and increases the support. Finally, I'm going to justify how the instruction adapts without removing access. That's really what this prompt that I have before you is going to do. I'm not going to talk too much through the answer that I would provide tonight. Maybe I will during our time for social media. But I will say that effective co-teaching is a responsive system, not a static structure. When we align models to settings and student needs, instruction becomes both compliant and compassionate. There's a few questions that I want to, I guess, ask you as we prepare to close. And my first one is, what signals would tell you that it's time to shift your co-teaching model? And which is the best to choose? I ask you this because that's what applying your knowledge of these various co-teaching models are all about. Best practices leading to best results. And if you're struggling to figure that portion out, we here at TT Innovative Solution would love to walk you through the competencies. It's a training that we have coming up on January 22nd at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can find more details and information at our website, ttinnovative.com. And as always, I'm always grateful for those that have found our channel, that want to continue as we provide you with, I hope, practical solutions, practical information, stuff that makes sense as we teach, train, innovate, and provide solutions for teachers. And I don't always say new and novice because that's my focus. And alternative teachers who are trying to pass their exam. But I'm here because I'm passionate about what I've learned over the years to be able to help my next client, whomever is watching this. If it can be of assistance, it will make my day. As always, I like to highlight something influential at the end of our time together. We've made it into 2026, and as we made it into 2026, our hashtag has changed, but our goal has not. We're still crushing your goals in 2026. If that goal is to pass your certification exam, outstanding. We'd love it. I'd love it if you would join our mailing list. And I want to thank you for subscribing to our channel. We've reached closer to our goal that we had for the end of 2025. But this reminder I give to you, let me make sure I'm looking right into the camera. Because you have not arrived, you are not behind. We have not arrived at the goal that we set, but we're still persevering. You be caught doing the same. All right, everyone, have a good evening. I hope to see you again next Monday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time.